The thrill capital of the world. God, that sounds cliche. Six Flags Magic Mountain is home to a record-breaking 20 coasters as of July 16th, and the record will be gone as of 2024. Let's face the truth while we're at it. Anyways, in today's video, we'll be going through one of the deepest coaster lineups in the world, and create a tier list ranking each coaster as D, C, B, A, or the coveted elite status. Before we start the video, I would really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. It means a lot more than you think, and will help a small channel like us grow. In alphabetical order, we are going to start with Apocalypse, the ride. You can't forget the ride part. It is very useful to know that it's a ride. Anyways, this is a mid-tier GCI Woody. I wouldn't say it competes with its elite rivals on the West Coast like Ghost Rider or Gold Striker, but it lands solidly in the middle tier. It's not unbelievably rough, but like all wood coasters, a rattle is there. I pointed it out, cry about it. There is decent laterals and decent airtime given on this coaster, and the station flyby is pretty epic if I do say so myself. This is also one of the better themed coasters at Six Flags, but they really don't care about it, do they? For these reasons, Apocalypse the Ride earns the A tier. Next up is Batman the Ride. We all know and love the Batman clones. It's at every Six Flags park, or at least it feels like it. This B&M invert delivers the intensity like no other. It has strong, fast-paced, whippy inversions that just throw you around and make you ask what just happened. Then again, this is a clone and a product of Six Flags' sad, pathetic budgeting. I mean, we all know this is in the top half of B&M inverts. We all know that's a good, fun ride, but just because it's a clone, I don't really see much coming out of this. Along with Apocalypse the Ride, I'm going to put Batman the Ride in the A tier. Next up is Canyon Blaster. This is an ENF Miler kiddie coaster. It's D tier. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk. Full Throttle was one of my favorite rides when I went to Six Flags. I absolutely loved the launch, and the hang time delivered in the massive loop. The swing launch was okay, and the dive drop thing was pretty fun. The airtime coming back around the loop would probably be some of the best in the park, except it drops into a bunch of trims. I do wish this coaster was a little longer, especially because I was enjoying it so much. 'Tis what it is, I guess. Additionally, this coaster is eye-candy to the viewer and looks amazing as you enter these parks. For these reasons, I'm going to put Full Throttle in the A tier. Next up is Gold Rusher. This is an aerodynamic mine train. There's really not much to it. It interacts with the terrain nicely, but it's rather forceless for the most part. That's my opinion on it, and it's not a kiddie coaster or a piece of garbage, so it goes in the C tier. Goliath is a one-of-a-kind, or I guess two-of-a-kind, Gianavola Hyper. Hypers are usually filled with airtime and sometimes positive Gs, but mainly airtime. And this has exactly 0. Can you see the problem here? Enthusiasts hate on this coaster like no other, and there is good reason for all the hate. I do have to say this was my first real extreme coaster, just after Incredicoaster, so it was a huge eye-opening experience for me. I never imagined it to be this high up on a roller coaster. I know I'm so weird. And I thought the first drop was great. However, after becoming a coaster enthusiast and enlightening myself, I discovered the first drop is not cool at all and is literally a 30-degree ramp, and it's like riding my scooter down the driveway. The mid-course completely ruins the pacing and brings the trains to a dead stop, ruining the second half for all riders. The final helix does give some nice sustained positive Gs though, and is one redeeming quality about the ride. Overall, I'm gonna put Goliath in the C tier. Magic Flyer is another kiddie coaster. Do I even need to say more? D tier. New Revolution was one of the first modern inversions in the world, and it still stands today. The layout is built for the loop. The long, drawn-out drop hypes up the one inversion, and the vertical loop does pull some positive Gs. Besides this, I would say it's a nice scenic train ride, Z. Though it does fly through a very visually appealing part of the park and has a nice surrounding. Going back through the loop also adds another cool feature. However, this is a family coaster, and for that reason, I'm going to put it in the C tier. Next up is Ninja. This is an aerodynamic suspended coaster, and like New Revolution, sits on a very good plot of land in the park. You fly through the trees and even over the water, and overall, it's just a very fun ride to ride. There's no intensity, no real good forces are pulled, but it's just quite a pure fun coaster that puts a smile on everyone's face. The inverted element is quite cool, and the swinging around on the turns are pretty fun. For these reasons, Ninja earns its spot in the C tier. Riddlers Revenge is a B&M standing coaster, and if you watched some of the videos before, you know I do not like standing coasters. In fact, I despise them. This was the only coaster I've ridden where I've wanted to get off as soon as the first drop kicked in. Maybe it was because I locked the restraint too high, maybe it was because I was getting a little motion sick, but I did not like this coaster at all. Beyond that, I can recognize that the standing coaster is not for me, but there's plenty of other enthusiasts who enjoy these type of coasters, and Riddlers Revenge, being the best standing coaster in the world from what I have heard of, earns a spot of the B tier. Roadrunner Express. D tier. What did you expect, really? Though it does have some nice theming, not enough to bump it up a spot though. Next up is the parking lot coaster that we all hate. Scream. I'm just kidding, I don't see all the hate surrounding Scream. It's not bad, but it's not good. Airtime Thrills is a little too harsh on this coaster, and it's influencing the community quite a bit. Yes, there is a slight rattle, it's not much though, and this coaster does pull some good forces in its 7 inversion layout. The color palette is pretty mid and it does sit on the parking lot, but beyond that, it's a very good ride. I don't see all the hate, but it's still definitely not my favorite. Along with Riddlers Revenge, Scream earns the B tier. Speedy Gonzales Hot Rod Racers. I'll let you guess. D tier. It's pretty obvious, I don't even have to explain myself at this point. Next up is Superman Escape from Krypton. This is a pretty bad launch coaster if you ask me. It's just a worse version of King Knott and Top Thrill Dragster. The launch takes forever to get up to speed and the restraints are so bulky that it hinders the experience. There's no nerve to the launch and no height build out, especially if you're launching backwards or are in the back rows. The weightlessness that's created from the switching up to down is fun but not thrilling. If you ride launching forwards in the front row, then you have what it takes to be in the B tier. However, if you ride it anywhere else, it's generally in the upper C tier. For this ranking, we're just going to assume that you're in the best seat and place it in the B tier. Next up is Tatsu. I seriously love this coaster. I love the feeling of flying, and Tatsu positioned up on top of a hill gives just that sensation. I love the graceful inversions and the turns over the top of the park. It just feels so amazing and makes me feel cool. And of course you have the notorious pretzel loop that enthusiasts rave about so much. I do like the pretzel loop, kind of, but I'm not a huge fan of intensity and the long sustained positive G's is not something I crave. However, I gray out and still enjoy the sensation, though it's not my favorite part of the ride at all. Nevertheless, the graceful feeling of flying and the fact that it's positioned on top of a hill, Tatsu earns the A tier. Next up is Twisted Colossus. Do I even need to talk about this coaster? We all know what it's like whether we ever rode it or not. Very good airtime moments with inversions mixed in between to diversify the layout. The fact that it's dueling is what makes it so good. However, Six Flags decides not to have a perfect operations and this coaster does not duel that often. Additionally, a lot of enthusiasts also complain about the lift hill in between, but I enjoyed it a lot because I love longer rides. Nevertheless, this beloved creation by RMC is loved by all, and is obviously a B tier coaster. Nah, I'm just kidding. We all know it's elite whether you like it or not. Next up is Viper, the last standing aero mega looper, and just to open the floodgates right away, I'm not a big fan. This ride is old, and with that comes a lot of shakiness. I'm taller than the restraints, so there's no head banging, but I still don't enjoy the ride in general. I'm not a huge fan of the multi-loopers to begin with, and when you add roughness to it, I will gladly decline. However, I can acknowledge that a lot of people can look past the roughness and see how much of a good ride Viper is. This coaster does pull some good forces, especially on those vertical loops, and can make me gray out at times. Because it's a little rough and not one of my favorite coasters, Viper earns the B tier. Next up is West Coast Racers. I really love this coaster, too much to admit. I think the dueling aspect is so fun, and the fact that it always duels makes this perfect. There is some airtime and the launches are very punchy, so it's already a good ride. Theme it to racing and have the duel element implemented, I cannot really ask for more. It's just pure fun, and it does provide some good forces. And for those reasons, West Coast Racers wins the A tier. Now for the newest coaster, Wonder Woman Flight of Courage. I'm going to be straight up, I haven't ridden this coaster yet, but it will be soon. However, hearing from other reviews, this coaster has fixed a lot of issues that Jersey Devil had, and looks to be a pretty fun ride. There's a lot of good airtime, as you would always expect from RMC, and looks to be just a very complete coaster. I cannot wait to get out and ride this, and for these reasons, Wwfoc, I use the abbreviation because why not, gets the A tier. Now for what you have all been waiting for. Too bad it starts with the last letter of the alphabet, but here we are now. X2 is a one-of-a-kind, well, not really, but it's an aerodynamics 4-dimensional coaster. You cannot find anything close to this outside of Asia besides this, so it already makes it so coveted. The coaster itself is absolutely insane. The seats flip on the side of the track and can make for one of the most disorienting experiences possible. When the on-ride soundtrack and flames are working, it makes the ride 10 times better. The first drop is amazing. Imagine being hurtled at the ground face first before turning away at the very last minute. My one complaint is this coaster is very rough and it can hurt a lot, especially on the final Raven turn. I was sitting in the outside seat back row, which is by far the roughest seat on the coaster, and on that last Raven turn, I hit my head so hard I almost got a concussion. Well, that's not scientifically backed, but it felt like that. My head was burning for the next 2 hours. That's my only real complaint. For the uniqueness and bizarre and insane experience that X2 provides, it earns the coveted elite status along with Twisted Colossus. That's my final ranking, guys. Let me know if you agree with my decisions down in the comment section below. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.